Happy meeting you.
Hello.
I'm very fond of your work, especially which you did on your ukulele and wall paintings.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
So I'm really fond, and I always see your artwork, and I have seen you painting with your fingers. So why do you really do that?
So, honestly, I have tremors in my fingers. I don't know if you can see them. They call essential tremors. So when I get anxious or a certain period of time, it gets really bad. So when I was facing difficulty with holding the brush and everything, I switched to my fingers because when you press your finger against the wall or the hard surface, it won't shake. It'll be solid. So it gave me more grip to make the sketches or paintings. Another reason being the feel of it. When you have pains on your hands, even though I know it's toxic, but I love the feel. I love the texture that your fingers give. I love the way I can paint with them. So quite some reasons, but yeah, that's how I got introduced into finger painting.
I have seen your digital art also. So how did you know that you can do this magic with digital art?
I don't know if I can do magic. It just happens. I mean, like at some point of my work, at some point I'll get this idea that if a certain light hits from this certain angle, and if I even if I'm painting a tree and it's supposed to be a lot of green, I add extra reds and purple and everything, and at some point I understand that okay, so this color might look unreal or surreal in that, or this type of lighting would bring out more beauty in that. So I don't do it thinking that I can make magic out of it. I'm still not sure about that part, but yeah, it just happens.
And the colors which you use are like bright colors. Like it just shows up. So do you have a palette or you are creating those colors?
Don't have a palette, but usually I have a mood board in my mind when I paint. If it's a night scene, and I'll have the idea of the elements that is going into the illustration. So with that, and most of the times I'll be inspired from something. It can be a photograph, or it can be a sunset that I saw, or any random things. I'll get inspired from the colors, and I experiment with it a lot. I keep changing it. If you look at my time lapse videos, you can see that I keep changing the colors. I keep changing the mood and everything. So it's not really a scripted thing unless and until I'm doing a photo study or something. If the illustration is coming out of my mind, it takes a lot of revisions. It keeps on improvising, changing, and I won't stop unless and until I'm in love with the colors that is on my screen.
You had dyslexia. So how did you overcome that? Like how did you show your artwork and you
I think
showed your
dyslexia was great with art, music, and everything. Apart from this very stereotypical textbook syllabus thing, or for me, I had issues with digits and numbers and their direction and their orientation. But I think the fact that I have dyslexia really, really, really helped me as an artist because my brain doesn't work the normal way. It's all upside down and like messed up. So I think that is something, that I'm very happy about these days because my brain is wired different, and that's beautiful.
so do you have any role models like who inspired you to do these artworks?
I had absolutely no role models growing up because my exposure to the outer world was very, very less. Like I grew up in a very strict household. So the only access I had was to books, library books that I can borrow and give it back. But movies are sort of banned at home. And me being an introvert, I did not have a lot of friends. So my exposure to the world was very less, that I couldn't pick one person to be a role model. And honestly, being a child or growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to become or what I'm going to become. This just happened in a flow. This was not planned. It just, I let it flow and I'm here. So, role model growing up, no, I did not have one.
You're an architect, so how did it help academically?
Um, I could do the sketches very well, but a lot of people mistake architecture to have a lot with art. I mean, when it comes to the concept and design and everything, it has a lot to do with art. But when it comes to the working drawings and everything, it's proper. It's very proper. It's a lot of math and calculations and stuff. So I was good with the sketching part, but when it came to like straight lines and numbers and everything, I messed up big time. So yeah.
I have seen your portrait drawings and it really look good and it looks like a real person. So how did you really start doing those drawings?
I started painting myself when when I ran out of references or ideas, because sometimes I just look at hundreds of people for references and I'm like, you know what, I'll paint myself today. So the face that I'm most familiar with is my face. So I thought learning my face, trying to portray it, will be one way to learn the human face anatomy. So yeah, that is how I started. Then whenever I feel like I need to shower myself with some love, I make a portrait of myself with a lot of flowers and very bright colors and everything, and that puts me in a very good mood.
Your drawings have a particular style and how did you found your own style?
Think it's with the lighting part that people think I have a style, but I struggle with not having a style because my style keeps changing every day. So I'm illustrating like few children's book these days. The problem is that I start with one illustration, I start with the style, and towards the fourth painting, the style is entirely different. Like the curves are different, everything is so different. So I myself know that I struggle with having a style, but I also understand that it's nice to not stick on one thing. It's nice to evolve because we have all seen Van Gogh's paintings, how it started with realism and it went to cubism. So I think it's a process. I think it's a progress.
And what do you really think about abstract painting?
But I just can't do it. Maybe it's my lack of knowledge or my lack of experience, but I always felt like what I paint should make some sense, and the art doesn't have to make sense. That is a universal truth. But for me, when I paint, I want to convey something to people. I want to tell people a story. I want to make them feel. So at this point of life, I don't know how to do that with abstract shapes or geometric shapes or just flash colors. I'm not there yet. But I think it's pretty. Some paintings they are like very beautiful. Some abstract paintings are very beautiful, but I have not reached that level where I can do abstract.
I really do struggle with painting. Like I am fine with sketching, but uh, did you really start with painting things, or you start with sketching and
I started making art when I was 4 years old. I did not have colors or anything. I did not have a lot of options. So I started with sketch pens and pencils. So my access to colors was really less that I used to sketch initially. But by the time I reached like third grade or fourth grade, I started getting these little cakes of watercolors, right? Since then, I didn't painting. I just couldn't, because what fascinates me in art is the colors more than the shapes, more than the framing, all the principles. It's colors for me. So I think I started coloring at a very young age, and when I was painting, then I wouldn't draw a sketch or a layout or anything. I just start with the brushes, with the colors, and yeah.
You're a self-taught artist, so how do you really do the like? Did you learn it from somewhere, like after some time,
No, I did not.
like color mixing and color
Nope, I
and
haven't. I think I just, with time and with practice, I just figured out how to do it. Yeah.
yeah, your lighting and those things are like really attractive, and shading also. So, did you like afterwards? You must have started watching movies. So, did you get reference from those or from somewhere else?
Um, yeah, so like I am pretty older than you. I'm 28 now. So back in our time, there was not a lot of internet or social media or anything. But once I started getting access to the internet, I started referring to other people's works to study lighting. And I started watching a lot of movies to understand the frames and the type of lighting. There is ambient lighting, there is very harsh lighting, and there's natural lighting, there's the golden hour, the sun lighting. So um, I still don't know the proper terms for it, but I observe a lot. Even when I'm like usually walking, my eyes they're searching for lights or colors or something all the time. That's how my brain works. So yeah, it was a lot of observation, a lot of reference. I study from a lot of other artists' work, photographs. Yeah.
For digital painting, which brushes do you really use? Like,
I use Procreate, and I started with the usual default brushes that Procreate has. And I used to use the round brush. I used to use air brushes, and there are some texture brushes called as Nico Rull and few default brushes like that. And then I started purchasing this amazing set of brushes online. It's called Max Pack brushes, Max Gauche brushes. I can actually give you the link to a few good brushes that I use. But I think I did a good work when I was working with the default brushes also. So yeah, you need to experiment with a lot of it to understand how it can change your painting.
okay, I'm really fond of doing portraits, and so like, did you study the anatomy of people and like animals and all this?
Initially, like 2 years back, I have not learned. I would just have an idea where the eyes are and the nose are and the lips are. The thing with portraits is I don't like doing people's portraits anymore. I do that so that I can come into character design. I can design characters and I can study different, uh, features of different races and everything. So recently, the book that I'm working on, I'm working with uh, a mixed, what do you call it? Race. The father is a British and the mother is an African. So the child is like a mix of both. Father is a Caucasian. So to create that character, I need to understand the anatomy and the facial features of a Caucasian male and an African female. So for Africans, they have like bigger foreheads and very thick lips, and they have broader nose, and yeah, their eyes are a little wide apart. For uh, Caucasian or white male, the features are usually what we draw. But unless and until I learn that, I cannot create a character. So first, a lot of study goes into understanding the features of the race. And then I bring about certain interesting characters, interesting features for the character. Like the girl that I'm illustrating now with the book, she has blue glasses and like very curly hair and like bright hair bands and everything. and her mother, she has like hair braids and she has a very fun personality. So it's not just about creating a character. You need a background story for it. You need to understand where they come from, the kind of person they are. Because if the girl is like the kid that I'm illustrating, she's a very fun character. So her clothes are all mismatched, right? And her hair is so messy. So you need to be that character, understand that character, get to know that character, and then you can come up with a good character design. Is something I believe.
Do you you said that you do book illustrations? So for a particular book, do you use a particular style?
I tried, but the thing is, my style just, the more I learn with every day, my style just keeps changing. And that is kind of a task to work with, because I'm on my 10th illustration and my style has changed. So I have to go back to the first illustration to make the same changes I've done in my 10th illustration. And going forward, I just keep going back and forth. I keep changing. So there's a little trouble in that area. So what I do these days is, when I design a character, suppose this is the character, I draw them from a lot of angles. Like there'll be a side profile, there'll be a profile where the character is looking towards that side, there'll be from the top, from the bottom. So once that is set, I use it as a reference sheet to draw the rest of the book. Otherwise, I'll just keep on improvising the character. I just do that, and that's a lot of work. So that this is one way to keep the face of the character or the body of the character. Same thing. I illustrate the body and I illustrate it in different angles so that I can use it. Or I'll when I go through the manuscript or the storyboard, I'll check what all poses this character is having. And then I illustrate it in one go so that it remains consistent. Then I use it throughout the illustrations of the book.
And for a particular book, do you use a particular color scheme, like suppose a shades of gray, like that?
Yeah. So right now, the projects that I'm working, one book is for the age of children from 9 and above. So I use very, very, very bright colors and everything. But another book I'm illustrating is for children from the age of 4 to 6. So I will not be using very bright colors. I'll be using a little more of a pastel shade. So it also depends on, if I'm illustrating a book for like adults, I can do one in monochrome. But for children, I wouldn't prefer doing one in monochrome. So I think you also need to understand the target audience that you're dealing with. Also, the feel of the book. If it's like a book that's filled with magic, the colors are going to be so bright and everything. But if it's a book that says a sad story, the colors will be like that accordingly.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming for this interview and for your time. Thank you so much.
I'm actually glad that you're very passionate and you wanted to ask me so much questions and you wanted to learn about it. Because in most of my interviews, it's just about my personal life, mostly, and very less about art. So I'm actually glad that I got to talk a lot of art with you. So thank you.